नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रसाय भक्तले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य सदा
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे हरे गुरु Madhavendra.
Thank you, Ma. That's mercy.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. Today we're going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Cosmic Creation, Chapter 1, the first step in God realization, text 33. Try to read this. Nadyosya nadyo tatanu ruhani Mahiruha Vishwa Tanu Nripendra Anantavirya Swasitam Matarisva Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravaha Nadyosya Nadyo Tatanu Ruhani Mahiruha Vishwa Tanu Nripendra Anantavirya Swasitam Matarisva Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravaha Nadyosya Nadyo Tatanu Ruhani Mahiruha Visvatanu Nripendra Anantavirya Swasitam Matarisva Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravaha. Hare Krishna. Your turn to chant.
Nadyasya nadya tatanu ruhani Mahiruha Vishwatanor Nupendra Anantavirya Swasitam Matarisva Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravaha
Nadyosya nadyo tatanu ruhani Mahiruha Visvatanu Nripendra Anantavirya Swavistam Matiresva Gatirvayo Karma Guna Pravaha. Hare Krishna.
Nadyosya nadyo tatanu ruhani Mahiruha Vishwatanor Nripendra Anantavirya Swashitam Matarshva Gatirvaya Karma Guna Pravaha.
Anyone else? Before what word then? Synonyms. Nadyaha, the rivers. Asya, of him. Nadyaha, veins. Atha, and thereafter. Tanu ruhani, hairs on the body. Mahiruhaha, the plants and trees. Viswatanoho, of the universal form. Nripandra, O king. Anantaviryaha, of the omnipotent. Swasitam, breathing. Matarishwa, air. Gatihi, movement. Vayaha, passing ages. Karma, activity. Guna pravaha, reactions of the modes of nature. Translation and brought by Jivanji Siswakamson. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. O king, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body, the trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. Purport. The personality of Godhead is not a dead stone, nor is he inactive, as is poorly taught by some schools. He moves with the progress of time, and therefore he knows all about the past and future, along with his present activities. There is nothing unknown to him. The conditioned souls are driven by the reactions of the modes of material nature, which are the activities of the Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 12th verse, the modes of nature act under his direction only, and as such, no natural functions are blind or automatic. The power behind the activities is the supervision of the Lord, and thus the Lord is never inactive as is wrongly conceived. The Vedas say that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do personally, as is always the case with superiors, but everything is done by his direction. As it is said, not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. In the Brahma Samhita 548, it is said that all the universes and the heads of them, the Brahmas, exist only for the duration of his breathing period. The same is confirmed here. The air on which the universes and the planets within the universes exist is nothing but a bit of the breath of the unchallengeable Virat Purusa. So even by studying the rivers, trees, air, and passing ages, one can conceive of the personality of Godhead without being misled by the formless conception of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, 5th verse of 12th chapter, it is stated that those who are much inclined to the formless conception of the Supreme Truth are more troubled than those who can intelligently conceive of the personal form. We'll read till text 35, I'll read text 34. Isasya kesan viduram buvahan vasastu sandhyam kuruvarya bhumnaha abhyaktamahurridayam manascha sachandrama sarva vikarakusaha. Word for word. Isasya of the Supreme Controller, Kesan, hairs on the head, Viduhu, you may know it from me, Ambubahan, the clouds which carry water, Vasatu, the dress, Sandhyam, termination of day and night, Kuruvarya, O best of the Kurus, Bhumnaha, of the Almighty, Abhyaktam, the prime cause of material creation, Ahuhu, it is said, Hridayam, intelligence, Manahcha, and the mind, Saha, he, Chandramaha, the moon, Sarvabhikarakosaha, the reservoir of all changes. Translation. O best amongst the Kurus, the clouds which carry water are the hairs on his head. The terminations of days or nights are his dress, and the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon and the reservoir of all changes. Text 35. Vijnana Saktim Mahima Mananti Sarvat Manunta Karanam Giritram Aswasvataryustragaja Nakhani Sarve Mriga Pasavasroni Dese. Synonyms. Vijnana Saktim, consciousness. Mahim, the principle of matter. Amananti, they call it so. Sarvatmanaha, of the omnipresent. Antahkaranam, ego. Giritram, Rudra, Shiva. Aswatari, mule. Ustra, camel. Gajaha, elephant. Nakhani, nails. Sarve, all other. Mrigaha, stags. Pashabaha, quadrupeds. Sroni, they say, on the reason of the belt. Translation. The principle of matter, Mahatattva, is the consciousness of the omnipresent Lord, as asserted by the experts. And Rudradev is his ego. The horse, mule, camel, and elephant are his nails, and wild animals and all quadrupeds are situated in the belt zone of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjanasalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakhan Vitamsa He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhevasa Patitanam Bhavani Vaishnavi Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Hare Krishna. Before I start to speak or glorify this verse, I would like to seek blessings from all of the devotees assembled here. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So I am just going to kind of recap for, I should say, for myself, being a little selfish. But so how are we getting to this today's verse is just going to little recap. In first canto, Sukadeva Goswami, before Sukadeva Goswami speaks, Maharaj Parikshit, he asks Sukadeva Goswami, like saying, please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. Right? In last chapter of first canto. And actually, that is the topic of our chapter now we're reading, like from a couple days, the first step in God realization. And then, and Sri Sukadeva Goswami starts answering his question in this chapter. First, he glorifies the verse, like we saw already. And first, he starts from the negative, like from don'ts, because he asked, like, what shall we do and what shall we not do? So he starts from negative by giving the example of grihamedis, like how grihamedis are, and we should not do that example. And then he says how one who desires to be free from all the miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller and savior from all miseries. And then few verses he focuses in chanting, glorifying and remembering the Lord, which was summarized by our Acharya Prabhu frequently in his classes. Even in yesterday's class, he was quoting this verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila. Smartabhya satatam Vishnu, vismartabhyo na jatuchit, sarve vidhi nisedhashyo, etayor eva kinkaraha. Meaning, Krishna is the origin of Lord Vishnu. He should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. These two things. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And then all the other rules and prohibitions. Sarve nidhi visedha. Sarve vidhi nisedhashyu. Vidhi means rules and regulations. Nisedhashyu means prohibitions, shouldn't do. Are what? They are the servants of these two principles. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And then Sukadeva Goswami, understanding the mind of King Parikshit, because remember in that last verse of first canto, 19th chapter, almost, Parikshit Maharaj is saying, like, you are the that kind of person that who can't stay for long. You go to a householder house, and then you stay for a couple minutes until you get the warm milk, and then you just leave that place. So he was worried that Sukadeva Goswami might leave soon, and then he might leave soon, immediately. So he was like, you don't stay for long anywhere. So would you mind please, kind of indirectly he's saying that, and understanding that mind, Sukadeva Goswami in this chapter in the beginning verses, he says, don't worry about that. Even muhurta, he says, he gives the example of Khatwanga Maharaj, saying even a muhurta, even like few minutes or a few seconds. Srila Prabhupada said that 1 minute in one of his class in Australia, he says 1 minute, if you are Krishna conscious 1 minute, your life is successful. So Sukadeva Goswami says, Khatwanga Maharaj had one muhurta, few minutes, right? And he was, he got liberation after fixing his mind onto the Supreme Lord. So you have 7 days, not just few minutes. And then from there, he starts telling about the process, how one should be bold enough not to be afraid of death and cut off mortal attachment. And then he goes on saying, you have to leave home. I mean, humans, one has to leave home, find a sacred place, bathe regularly, sit down in a sanctified place, and remember the Lord, starting with the pranava, omkar. He says, like, starting from pranava, and then you have to meditate on Lord Vishnu's limbs. And that is not the end. And he says, like, from that person will start the devotional service. After all those meditation, starting from pranava, eventually you go to samadhi, which is the starting phase of devotional service. So here in that verse itself, it looks like kind of end of his answer to the question that he was asking. Maharaj Pariksit was asking, looks like end of it. Like you focus your mind on Krishna, that's the end. Like that is what a person should be doing at the end of the life, right? So, and then, but it was okay for Pariksit Maharaj. He got his answer. But understanding that we, as people in this age of Kali, Mandas Mandamatayo, Mandabhagya Upadrita, right? Understanding that we are going to be listening to this transcendental conversation. Pariksit Maharaj again requests Sukadeva Goswami to please describe in full detail. In the previous verse, in verse 22, he says that, please describe in detail. And then from 23 onwards, Sukadeva Goswami is explaining the process, starting from the scratch, right? We can see that here, instead of starting from the scratch, Sukadeva Goswami could have easily explained the 9 processes of devotional service, which comes in later in 7th canto, right? Sravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. So instead of saying the 9 processes of devotional service, he starts from the scratch, even though nobody there needed to listen about all the stuff we read from couple days, because it was the assembly of all highly elevated sages there, all those sages, and Maharaj Pariksit was already a devotee, pure devotee of the Lord, right? And he knew that we will be listening, we'll be talking over and listening over, like today. Right? And then he starts from that, from 24, 25 verses onward, he starts going from how a materially engrossed person like us can gradually elevate our consciousness, understanding from our own level. I mean, like a student of a kindergarten won't be able to understand the complex sentences. He has to start learning from the alphabets first, right? He can't just make a sentence. Similarly, seeing our engrossment, Sukadeva Goswami starts explaining by comparing this whole world, material world, to the gigantic body of the Lord. And he says, like, this is the Lord's feet, knees, all those stuff we read already, right? And it is explained again in detail in Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, right? The universal form. But in the purport of one of the verses in this chapter, the first step in God realization, Srila Prabhupada, in one of the purport, he writes, the Virat Roop of the Lord was especially manifested not for the benefit of Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, right? But for us, unintelligent class of men who accept anyone and everyone as an incarnation of the Lord. We can see so many incarnations around the world now, right? And so we get misled. Then in the last line, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, this is a favor of the all-merciful Lord to the atheist and the gross materialist, both. And then and in today's verse, like he gives all those comparison, comparison of the manifestation, like the patala, sutala, the faith of the Lord, all those growing up. And then today's verse is continuation to that. He says, in the translation, he says, "O king, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body." Okay. Can I share my screen? I was going to share, or today's verse. Oh, you're just sharing. Okay. Yeah, he says, "Oh, best among the," no, where is it? 33. Sorry. 34, 33, yes. "O king, the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body, the trees are the hairs of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing edges are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature." So here, Sukadeva Goswami is saying the rivers are the veins of the gigantic body. Comparing. And then, I mean, veins means here it is said nadi, nadyaha, veins in the synonyms. Nadyaha means veins. Or it also means like the flowing potency. Right? And then, but if we remember in Isopanishad, again, Lord, I mean, in the translation, it is written that the Lord is without veins. The Lord is without veins. And the translation, let me minimize our, and
I made you co-host in case.
Yeah, please. I was struggling. Thank you. This will stop other screen sharing. It said this will stop other screen sharing. Do you want to continue?
That's fine.
Yes.
I can stop the share, but yeah, you can share and stop the share.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I was going to see this one. In Isopanishad 8, it says, Lord is without the vein, without veins, asnaviram. This one, asnaviram. Right? It looks like contradictory. But here, Srila Prabhupada in the translation, he explains, such a person must factually know the greatest of all, his personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. Right? And in the purport, even though the translation in the words looks like the Lord is, it doesn't have any form. He doesn't have pain. He doesn't have this. He doesn't have that. And in verse 5 of this Isopanishad, it says like Lord doesn't walk, but even though he's faster than this, like that, right? And the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the supreme, here is a description of the transcendental and eternal form of the absolute personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is not formless. Okay? It says not this, not that. That means what? That means he has his own transcendental form, which is not similar to our form. Okay, back to our purport today. So, And he is comparing the trees are the hairs of the body, of his body, and the omnipotent air is his breath. The passing ages are his movements, and his activities are the reactions of the three modes of material nature. That's the Bhagavad Gita. Purport. The personality of Godhead is not a dead stone, nor is he inactive, as is poorly thought by some schools. He moves with the progress of time and therefore knows all about the past, future, along with his present activities. And in Bhagavad Gita, 11th chapter, he says, Kalosmi, time I am. And then there is nothing unknown to him. The conditioned souls are driven by the reactions of the modes of material nature, which are the activities of the Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 12 verse, the modes of nature act under his direction only, and as such, no natural functions are blind or automatic. The power behind the activities is the supervision of the Lord, and thus the Lord is never inactive, as is wrongly conceived. Right? It is a Lord is never inactive. And when we say thus, my Lord is never inactive, I'm sure I don't need to elaborate on this. But in second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there is a verse where it says, seeing the, what was that? It says like, looks like the devotees are inactive, not working, non-functional, but they are very active. And in the purport, it is compared to the swans. Like in the water, when we see swans, like we don't see the paw, or what is that, claw of the swan moving under the water, but we see the swan like moving in the water. We don't see the, what is that, claw or paw, whatever, under the water is moving, flapping, right? So there is some activities going on, but we can't see. So similarly, it was compared to the devotees. When we see like devotees, they just sit and chant. They don't do anything. But they're moving their finger inside the bead bag, like a swan. Right? So Lord is never inactive, as is wrongly conceived. The Vedas say that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do personally, as is always the case with the superiors. But everything is done by his direction. As a few classes earlier, I think Mother Samala also explained on this point, saying how the Lord is not doing anything, looks like he's not doing anything, but he has nothing to do because everything is done under his direction. Maya Dikshana Prakriti. Tuyate Sacharacharam. Right? As it is said, not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. So I just remembered one small pastime of Lord Krishna on this saying, as it is said, not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. So one time, Mother Rukmini Devi asks, like she thinks this one, like, okay, Lord Krishna says that he's the only one feeding everyone, like all the living entities in this whole universe. Today I'll see how will he feed this ant. So she hides one small ant in a small little box, and he hides inside, like he hides it, so that we'll see how Krishna feeds this ant. And then later when Lord Krishna comes back home, and then Rukmini Devi feeds prasadam, boga, whatever. And then she asked like, okay, my Lord, have you fed everyone, every living entities in this whole world? And then she says, yes, I did. And then says, are you sure? And the Lord Krishna says, yes, I did. I even fed the ant inside your box. And then she was like, oh, like, how did you know? How did you know? And he said, like, when you were putting this ant in that box, like one of the little drop from your kumkum fell into that box, and that was enough for that ant for a whole day. Right? So nothing, not a blade of grass moves without his sanction. Like there are a lot to say on this point, but I'll continue to the purport. In the Brahma Samhita 548, it is said that all the universes and the heads of them, the Brahmas, exist only for the duration of his breathing period. The same is confirmed here. The air on which the universe and the planets within the universes exist is nothing but a beta breath of the unchallengeable Virat Purusha. So go to 548. This is very nice sloka if anyone wants to recite this one. Brahma Samhita. Mother Vindhyavali. Yes,
यश्वैकनिःश्वस्तकलम् अतावलम्ब्य जीवन्ति लोमविलज्जगदण्डनाथ विष्णोर्महान् स इह यस्य कलाविशेषो गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि.
Brahma and other lords of the mundane worlds appearing from the pores of hair of Mahavishnu remain alive as long as the duration of one exhalation of the latter Mahavishnu. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whose subjective personality Mahavishnu is the portion of portion. And then Srila Prabhupada further said, so even by studying the rivers, trees, air, and passing ages, one can conceive the personality of Godhead without being misled by the formless conception of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, 12th chapter, 5th verse, it is stated that those who are much inclined to the formless conception of the Supreme Truth are more troubled than those who can intelligently conceive of the personal form. Right? And here, this last line is really very important, kind of the theme of this verse. Who are inclined to the formless conception of the Supreme Truth are more troubled than those who can intelligently conceive of the personal form. And in this verse, Srila Prabhupada quoted 12.5. In the translation, Srila Prabhupada writes, for those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. It's not, how long? It is a long one. Okay. And Srila Prabhupada is nicely explaining in purport how it is difficult to follow the Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga, all this, then compared to Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the easiest, like an elevator. Mother Vindhyavali is smiling. Like elevator compared to the steps. Other processes like Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Hatha Yoga, so many yogas. However, they are like steps for the self steps, which is very slower and troublesome compared to Bhakti Yoga. And then Srila Prabhupada often compares the elephant and the blind man, right? Where he says, like, when the blind man tried to conceive about the feature of elephant, like they were grabbing different parts, like someone is grabbing the legs of the elephant and saying, oh, elephant is like a pillar. Someone says, no, he's like a rope. Someone says, no, he's like snake. Someone says, no, he's like something, like wall, like all those, right? But if someone, being merciful on him, gives a small statue or whatever form of an elephant and then tells them, like, look how this elephant is like he has the big body like a wall, pillars like big legs, all those stuff. So Bhakti Yoga is, it's said, very easy because in Bhakti Yoga we worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in an Archa Vigraha form, where we can meditate, where we can focus our mind to that Supreme Lord in the form of Archa Vigraha. And so that in the last line, Srila Prabhupada said, the formless, whoever is focusing their mind on the formless feature of the Lord is very troublesome, because there is no way to have our mindset fixed upon. Even the pranava, like formless pranava, omkar, when you say om, like once we say om, we can feel or we can see that omkar in front of our, like when you close, even you close your eyes, you'll see that om because you are saying om and for meditating on om. That's why Srila Prabhupada is saying, he's focusing on that line so much. It is troublesome. There is no fixed path. Like, but Bhakti Yoga means it's a way of life. Like from morning, start from morning. There's a purpose to get up. Mangalarati, chanting, all those stuff, and all those devotional services all day we can do, right? And then everything, whatever we do in the service of the Lord or the service of the devotees, it's a way of life. But we don't have that idle time actually to do it. To, some people say like for time pass. We don't have the time to pass when we actually follow the Bhakti Yoga. Okay. Line. Okay. Here, living entity. The last paragraph. Yes, we'll read this last paragraph. Sati Devi. Do you want to read this last paragraph?
Okay. There's music behind me, but a living entity is eternally an individual soul, and if he wants to merge into the spiritual whole, he may accomplish the realization of the eternal and knowledgeable aspects of his original nature. But the blissful portion is not realized. For the grace of some devotee, such a transcendentalist, highly learned in the process of Jnana Yoga, becomes to the point of Bhakti Yoga, or devotional service. At that time, long practice in impersonalism also becomes a source of trouble, because he cannot give up the idea. Therefore, an embodied soul is always in difficulty with the unmanifest, both at the time of practice and at the time of realization. Every living soul is partially independent, and one should know for certain that this unmanifest realization is against the nature of this spiritual blissful self. One should not take up this process. For every individual living entity, the process of Krishna consciousness, which entails full engagement in devotional service, is the best way. If one wants to ignore this devotional service, there is the danger of turning to atheism. Thus, the process of centering attention on the unmanifested, the inconceivable, which is beyond the approach of the senses, as already expressed in this verse, should never be encouraged at any time, especially in this age. It is not advised by the Lord Krishna.
Thank you. So it is not advised in this age, but which is very much prevalent in this age. That's when Srila Prabhupada in one of the purport before he was going into the material manifestation, he talks a little about pantheism, and then he says like for the people who doesn't believe in God, supremacy of the Lord, this pantheism, like people says this whole manifestation is some kind of energy or kind of God for them. There are like so many people we see, they worship sun god, the ocean and all those, but they don't believe in God. They say God is formless, but they worship sun, they worship ocean or air god, all those different types. And another verse, again in 34, in translation, the clouds which carry, O best amongst the Kurus, the clouds which carry water are the hairs on his head. The terminations of days or nights are his dress, and the supreme cause of material creation is his intelligence. His mind is the moon, the reservoir of all changes. Comparing, and to this, I was trying to find some insights on that. And in Sarartha Darshini, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is writing the powerful Lord of the powerful Lord. In the verse, there is a Bhumna. Where is it? Bhumna means of the powerful Lord. Pradhana. Bhumna means is the powerful Lord. Abhyaktam is his intelligence. The famous moon is his mind. It is the shelter like a vessel for all kinds of changes. That's all I could find about his comparison of the moon to his mind. And then in 35, the principle of matter, Mahatattva, is the consciousness of the omnipresent Lord as asserted by the experts, and Rudra Dev is his ego. The horse, mule, camel, and elephant are his nails, and wild animals are all quadrupeds. And all quadrupeds are situated in belt zone of the Lord. To that, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Sarartha Darshini is writing, they say that Mahatattva is a chitta. Rudra is his false ego. Horses, mules, camels, and elephants are his nails. All animals are his hips. Right? And in the purport, he writes, Vijnana Sakti means his chitta. What is chitta? Mind. And Mahim means Mahatattva. Antakarana means false ego, which is compared to Rudradev, Lord Shiva. Giritram means Rudra. In the verse, Giritram means Rudra. Aswattari is a cross between a donkey and a female horse. Okay. So again, this comparison of the cosmic manifestation to the Lord's in gigantic form is for us to shift our consciousness from the material engagement or attachment to the Lord. Like when we, like in 11th chapter, Lord says like the water you drink, the taste of the water you drink, that is also me. Like when we go to the details of the Virat Rupa. So everything here, Sukadev Goswami is saying how even the materially engrossed person, if he desires, the main thing comes here, desire, ichha, desire. If he desires, then he can see Krishna even in water or even in anything like sun, moon as his eyes, day and night as his dress, right? So the main thing is desire. Krishna has given us this minute independence to either remember him or forget him, right? That's why this two principle, Srila Rupa Goswami focusing on that. Remembering Krishna and never forgetting Krishna are the main principles of bhakti. Everything we do, we try to remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. Okay, that is how we should have our consciousness. Always to remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. Smriti Sinta, Stutirvacha, Uyat Sarvatmana Vishnu, Madhyam. Okay, saying this, I will stop here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If anyone has any reflections or some elaborations on these points, please
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Krishna. Mukti
It
Tata.
was so wonderful hearing you. And I like the example you gave, like for the God is never inactive. And you gave the example of devotees and the swan. That was so nice. And also like Bhakti Yuga is like a elevator, and the other yuga like Karma Yuga, Jnana Yuga is the steps, and very troublesome. That point I really like, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Are you speaking, Sati Devi?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So in today's class, it seemed like, just like you said, there was a contradiction. That Krishna has veins, does not have veins in Ishopanishad, but Virat Rupa, you're saying veins are like rivers. There is also, you mentioned both examples today. You said, step by step we have to go. If we don't finish kindergarten, how do we learn how to read? But at the end of the class, you said, Bhakti Yoga is like elevator. You don't have to go step by step. So can you just again explain again when we use that example and when we use this example?
Isopanishad and Srimad Bhagavatam, here in the purport to the previous verse, Srila Prabhupada already said like this. These verses, these verses are like 32, yesterday's verse. When the Lord is described as impersonal, therefore it should be understood that his personality is not exactly the type of personality found within our imperfect speculation. One can, however, worship the Lord even by seeing the hills and mountains or the ocean and the sky as different parts and parcels of the gigantic body of the Lord, the Virat Purusha. The Virat Rup, as explained by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, is challenge to the unbelievers. This is the point. Like we have to, that's why we have to guard our bhakti. I exactly don't remember the verse, but it says like we have to guard our bhakti with the fence of jnana and vairagya. We should have that knowledge and renunciation to protect our bhakti. So the jnana means like if somebody asks somebody like unbelievers or pantheism or whatever, these people, they have this notion of like Lord is formless. So we should be good enough to tell that, yes, yeah, for you, Lord is formless because Lord is the sky, Lord is the ocean, Lord is mountains, Lord is everything. He doesn't have any form. But then for us, he has the form. For the believers, I should say, for the devotees, Lord has his Satchidanandamaya Vigraha. Right? Satchit Anandamaya. That is the knowledge we should have. And again, about the elevator and the steps, like people might say nowadays, like taking steps is healthier than taking elevator, right? To burn your fat. But no, if you have to go 100 steps up, then it's definitely you take elevator. Okay? So if one knows that there is an elevator already, so we'll take that steps like for that long. Like it's not 1 or 2 story, like we have to go 100, 200 flats up and down.
I think that example of guarding our bhakti with the fence of jnana and vairagya, I think that that bridges it nicely between the two. Usually in a class, you'd usually hear, take the elevator, don't take the steps. Or we get a class that says go step by step, don't rush. If this is where you are, then focus where you are and try to build from there. Don't say, oh, they are already so far ahead, I have to jump there. So usually it is this or that we focus on. But today in your class, it seemed like you mentioned both the examples. But again, I think that bridging of protecting our bhakti, that is the most important thing. And we need to understand where we are.
Yeah.
And definitely we should not get stuck there. We should move forward. So that is how the way to do it is explained here. And thank you very much, Mataji. Today I really like the way Mother Rukmini tried to question Lord Krishna and how he, just again and again we hear he knows everything. There is nothing that can be hidden from him, nothing that will happen without his sanction. It's good to see it in the grandeur. It's also so good to see, so sweet to hear a conversation between Mother Rukmini and Krishna, even in very small quantities we see it in huge quantities. There is nothing that can be hidden from him.
Yeah. Yeah. And then time and again, whenever we have that feeling of like, I know everything, or I have this ahankara, he sends someone or he comes in different form to break that. Yes. Like even Lord Brahma.
Yes.
Was so suspicious of Krishna. And then he got a nice lesson. Right. So we are just living entities. So that's why we have to have that fence around us. Jnana and Vairagya. And for that, we need devotees association, like we're doing even virtually now.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice class, Shama. It's very good. And then, the way you're talking about elevator, whatever modern world we are in case of emergency, don't take the elevator, take the steps. So whatever modern world we are in, now we cannot do that. So that is one thing. And the whole Bhagavad Gita, and not that Arjuna doesn't know anything for all of us. And here in this 32 text, he says, the Virat Rupa is as explained by Lord Krishna to Arjuna as a challenge to the unbelievers.
Yeah.
So that is the main word I like. Prabhupada wrote it. It's for unbelievers. It's not that.
Yes. He's preparing us.
Yeah.
The one who's reading Bhagavatam, like there is a word, what is it? Scrutinizingly, we should read Bhagavatam. So that word, scrutinizingly, whoever reads that and they'll get these words. Like this was the challenge to the unbelievers. When we just read the verse, like we try to, read all those Sanskrit and translation, the skip. But main thing is in the purport.
Yeah.
Like this verse seems like there's nothing to do with Lord's thing, right? It says all these things are compared. So it looks like, okay, there is like, where is the Lord's form? Like modesty is the upper portion of his lips, all those things, right? Doesn't look like a real form of the Lord. But when we read in purport, then he says like this Virat Rupa, as exhibited by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, is a challenge to the unbelievers. So it's like a hidden, what do you say? It's hidden inside the purport. The main thing.
Yeah, even Brahma, he thought something and he realized what is that later on. So we all should see that. That's a very good thing. All this in nature and everywhere, he is there. So that's why he says he is everywhere. And whatever we are doing, he is in Paramatma, he is in us only. He watches everything. Whether we are saying that, I know, Shyamagori is not seeing me, that I can do this, but he watches me, what I'm doing. So that is really amazing. The more and more, this second chapter, second canto, it tells about him and in the nature, in the everywhere, what he is. That is really amazing.
Yeah,
More
and
and
here,
more.
yes, yes. You are already jumping. He's going to say about the Paramatma form also. It's coming.
I don't know, but I was just the one I thought I said. Not, I didn't go that far. Thank you very much, Shyama,
Thank you.
for giving me the opportunity also.
Thank you. Murari Prabhu, are you going to say something? No.
Very nice class. I very much appreciated the story about Rukmini and Krishna as well. It was very sweet. So this really, verifies that Krishna is in control of everything. It's very sweet, and I very much can apply that to my own life. When we meditate on that, what is there to fear? It's very beautiful. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay. As I will Kalpesh Prabhu, you're not going to speak today.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Mataji, what to say? You spoke such a wonderful thing. And more I'm in following the process. I don't have too much faith, to be honest. Let's see, while whatever I read here or how it applies to me and what am I doing it, And when it comes to talking about the bigger subject like formless, and I'm totally lost because I don't know how to say, but and I keep on questioning myself and trying to look for several sources here. And Srila Prabhupada said in the Upanishad, it is clearly said that Supreme Personality of Godhead can never be known simply by working very hard and taxing the good brain, nor can he be known simply by mental speculations and juggleries of word. So it's very appropriate to my for my case because uh, it's very difficult to understand through words, and it's a process by itself. So I am not even called a neophyte because um, so many principles are given which to regulate the life. I'm struggling there right now to overcome that. My mind remains disturbed. Um, not that I want to keep that way, but stays that way when and all the words which Prabhupada said related to the association, um, offering the food. And see, today my sound is not sounding great, right? Because I had to. I went for a book distribution yesterday in one of the event, and then association was not so great. So it directly affected my mental state today, and my body is not sounding right because it was not a right association to be there, and the food which I consumed was I had to do it because I had a very difficult. I did offer mentally, but the quality which I make at our home and the difference. So I can feel that when when I'm not doing the right thing, the effects are immediately, and I don't know how to overcome this. So whatever Prabhupada is saying in the words, it can be only experienced, and it comes. That's my understanding, with a little understanding. And when it comes to subject of formless and all those, I don't know how to talk about it because it's not a subject of words. But it's good to know through scripture what scripture is saying, and like how I'm realizing or experiencing in the real time. That is how we can connect at a certain point. Like, okay, what really these words are, what really it means, because it may generally my understanding of words is by just understanding the meanings of it, like in the English, but that's not bhakti, that's not bhava, and that's not an experience too. It's just a dry speculation through words, you know. It helps, it feels nice. Some people don't even like to do that too, but for me it is nice that I'm relishing that flavor of so that, I mean, that is what I have to say, you know. But you gave an excellent class with so many reference and trying to make people like me understand a little bit, you know. Hare Krishna Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisance.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Actually, at least you know, I mean, you acknowledge that, I mean, I'm here, I'm struggling here. So knowing that our like setbacks and working on that. Working on that means going with that ABCD process, right? When we know that I have this thing, I lack this thing, and I'm struggling here. So we always go to that, our formula, ABCD, association, books, chanting, and diet on prasadam.
He does very good book distribution.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he talked about what he was not able to do or what his difficulties. We will just fill in with what this program was brought to his attention during the week. He contacted them, got himself a table, went there. I don't know who else showed up or not, but yes, the difficulty is there when, you know, it's not an association that we would choose to go, but Prabhupada did it. He gave his association to people who did not deserve it, did not, had no qualifications. But he came. And that is also another thing I was telling, I think, Vishnugada Prabhu once, I never feel when I am on the streets, I don't look at somebody and say, oh my goodness, they need Krishna, I should go help them. That does not come to me. But I did see that I'm learning to see that in Srila Prabhupada, how when we used to read the Leelamrit, when he was on the New Jersey Turnpike making his way from New York to Butler, he was looking out the window. Anybody else, if it was me, I would have said, oh wow, look at these wide roads, look at the number of cars. If I had just come from India, especially in 1965. But he saw the material world at its worst. He saw the mode of passion in all the factories on New Jersey Turnpike, on the bridges, the cars. And he felt compassion. He felt these people need this so much. He came to a place, I mean, even that poem that he wrote on the, as soon as he got off in Boston, why did you bring me to this hell? What am I going to be able to do? You make me do what I need to do. I mean, you see his compassion. And so that is what it is. You went to that program yesterday because those people we of course are in need of this knowledge, and we are trying our best to learn. But at least we are here today listening to this. Still very far away from where we should be, but at least we are here. Those people really need to get themselves out of that world of Maya and bring themselves to the temple. And that is the hope you have given them. And that desire in you to go to that hellish place and do it is what we should focus on, not who took the books, how many books did they read, will they come. That's all up to Krishna. Again, that also is Guru Prasad, right? If we don't get the mercy from Guru, from Sadhu, from Shastra, from Krishna, ultimately not going to happen. That's beyond our capacity. But doing what Srila Prabhupada has asked you to do is where it is. and you know, in sickness, if you know, so that the way to look at it, did you get sick because you went into that bad association? I'm not sure, but the bigger point I think is that in this sickness you will not give up. You know, this challenge has been put on you. You are being tested with becoming sick. Don't say, oh my goodness, I'm getting sick when I go to these places, I should not do this again. That is where your, you know, resolution shows up.
Yep, Mataji, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
The society, we cannot really avoid society and do this, because that's not the idea of doing it. So we have to, like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about what Prabhupada has done, I mean, 1965, today's America is not 1965's America. When he came, it was a very different place. And again, like I said, when you really do think about it, you know, you read those pages in the Leelamrit when he sat on a Greyhound bus to get to Butler, and what he saw outside and how he reacted. It really, you know, when I realized that one day, I don't feel that I do it because my guru says do it. I mean, you know, it's still not coming naturally. If I do it at all, I'm doing it because my guru says you've got to do this. This is, you know, this is the instruction from my guru. I've taken it on. So this is my instruction to you. But it's they are in need of it. All of us are in need of it. So, but again, like Mataji said, let us protect what we have with that fence. We need to protect ourselves. Thank you very much, Mataji. Very nice way to start our week.
Kalpesh Prabhu, continue to do that.
Yes, that was wonderful. I was remembering Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj when his disciples were fasting, Nirjala fasting on Ekadasi, and Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj got, I mean, he said, like, eat khichdi and go for. That is the mood,
Thank you
actually.
very much, Shyamaji. Very nice class. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki
Yeah.
jai. David Prabhu, he said. Are you going to speak, David Prabhu?
Hare Krishna.
He always does this.
Hare Krishna.
Very rare he speaks.
Hare
Suman
Krishna.
Mataji, go ahead.
Suman
I
Mataji.
really like the example of Rukmini. Krishna, no? The ant. I never heard about this story. It's just a beautiful story. And very nice to hear about Krishna Katha today. But it's hard for me to believe also the different limbs are different manifestation. I just make myself believe that it is true because Krishna did it, but it's really hard to believe. I think it will take me some more time as we go through the Bhagavatam. More we do more reading, and then only maybe we will. But I want to believe because Krishna helps us. I want to believe it. Yeah, thank you very much for your nice class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mother Suman. Okay.
Kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Antakoti Vishnu Kripa. Thank you, thank you. Thank you.